moon.
Hello there, and welcome to That's No Moon, a Star Wars Legion podcast. I am Cockles, your host, and we have two regulars and two very special guests. In fact, I'm trying to think of the last time that two very special guests were on at the same time, because we've had one or the other, and we had Andy, and it's just so yeah. It's been a while since the two were on. The regulars don't need their intro usually, but it's been a while since I've been able to crack out the classic for these guys. So here it is. Please, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, please welcome the Wills.
Woo!
Yeah, that was much more enthusiastic than I was expecting at 10 p.m. in the evening. Although it's not 10 p.m.
It's
for you,
2 p.m. for us, right?
It's 2 p.m. for you, so it's all good. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us. How are you?
Oh, doing great. Thanks for having us, and for staying up a little late to have a chat.
We're all night owls over here. It's just what happens, and it just as is well documented as an NFL fan of a team who's in the Pacific Northwest, I'm used to staying up late, and that's
I
what
was gonna
happens.
say you definitely don't sleep a lot during the season, do you?
No. Oh, well, I always look forward to the 1 a.m. games when they kick off. Great, cheers, thanks very much. It's worse. It's worse if they lose. That doesn't happen too often. But yes, we're. I wonder what we're here to talk about. I can't quite. We could talk sports if we want to, but I don't think anyone else is going to be really
I
interested in that.
mean, it could be about Gungans, I guess. Do you want to spend 50 minutes just wish listing all of the things
I
that aren't
mean,
going to
Sure.
happen? Because we could do that.
spoiler alert. Last question. But we'll start as we mean to go on. Obviously, this week, if you are a Star Wars Legion player, and you have not been under a rock, you will have seen that there has been a recent, let's say, announcement with updates, including changes to rules and changes to points and changes and additions and all such and such forth. I suppose the first question really then is as a general, how has what general feedback have you had, not just maybe from us as content creators in terms of the guys everyone else you spoke to, but the community in general? What's been the overall hot takes that you've had back?
I mean, I got the Legion Discord community to briefly change the general chat to "This is a Wendy's," so I feel like we're doing great.
Brilliant. Works out quite well.
That did happen. No, I mean, I think people are generally speaking very excited about this. People are loving on the sniper changes. They're loving on the AI stuff. Of course, the new unit upgrades are very exciting. So people seem really, really excited.
I think what's
Yeah,
quite
I would say like we will see how everything plays out, but for the most part, in terms of at least making a swing to move the game in a positive direction that is going to make, everyone's experience with it better and hopefully better, I guess. Most people are very excited about it. They seem to be very positive, and so it's been a wonderful time.
I think what's quite interesting, not interesting, but really exciting is the fact you had the reveals from Adepticon, what, 4 or 5 weeks ago, and then you have
Hmm.
this announcement. So they come quite close together. So that's a lot of brand new information for everyone to absorb, to take in and go. I've got this to look forward to, this to look forward to, and oh my god, these come out in June.
Hmm.
All that sorts of stuff. Well, I think we started the first off. Andy had a question about Mandalorians and the film and things, really, and it was just like, oh, is that? Yeah. So it was a.
That was Ollie. Ollie's in charge of
Oh well,
the.
this is actually well, it was a collective observation. I think is the way it goes.
We've broken it down. So Ollie's going for more the Adepticon side of discussions, and then I'm going for the rules side of things, being the nerdy one of the two of us.
And as the local
Let's
idiot, I'll be
go.
asking anything else in between.
Love it.
Interesting. So, I mean, first thing that we saw was the squatted up Han and Chewie.
Hmm.
And so, in terms of a design space, what sort of made you consider putting together characters for squads? Because it certainly adds a level of excitement to the game that we haven't seen before.
I think the number one driving factor was really it's another great way to get more characters on the table in a way that is true to what Legion wants to be, which is a unit-centric army game, right? And really built off the back of the Bad Batch and the success we saw there with kind of that design. And so when we were looking at doing an episode 4 kind of centric Han and Chewie, it was pretty easy to say, how do we make them different from the ones that already exist? Let's make them a unit. Because in that movie, especially, we don't ever see them apart, right? They're just a duo that works together. And that gave us some opportunities to do some really unique stuff and to kind of play with the idea of how these characters would work. It also gave us an opportunity to look at that character unit idea from a smaller scale. And this was actually something that we had originally thought we would explore with the Inquisitors. So seventh brother or seventh sister and fifth brother, get those two correct. Our initial concept was that they would be a character unit and they would kind of come out alongside Bad Batch as a smaller version of that. For various reasons, that plan didn't really come to fruition. One was that those two characters don't always operate together. Like we see them in the show do so, but typically they would be more solo operatives. So talking with LFL about kind of who the characters were, how they would operate normally, we walked away from that idea and instead did what we did where it's easy to take both of them in a list, but they still operated like normal characters at the time. But with Han and Chewie, again, it was just one of those things I think thematically came together really well, and then it offered the developments and rules stuff, some neat things that they could play with, and to really differentiate them from, the Han, the Han Solo, and the Chewbacca that we have seen previously in the game as well.
Oh,
Yeah,
it certainly feels like an amazing space. Same as like all of the individual characters that you guys are releasing. So obviously we had the Jedi Council, which looks absolutely fantastic, and the fact that you can just slap them in units means you can probably have,
Mhm.
you picture the Battle of Geonosis when you think of the most Jedi in a
Mhm.
battle, all leading clone squads. So I imagine we're going to see an awful lot of Geonosis clone lists painted up.
I
yeah,
love
we had
contemplating
the
that.
companion option, right? So sort of like C-3PO at R2 was something that we looked at, but there are a lot of niche rules that work out with that, and we decided that instead of doing a companion where it would be an option to take Han and Chewie together, we just wanted them always to be together. Essentially, it was kind of why we didn't go that route.
But it also adds to the fact that, especially with Rebels being, especially in the films, that they're a really character-driven
Mhm.
force. So the command and the operative slots are really heavily fought for. So
Mhm.
the fact that you can now take assuming you take the Bad Batch, you take Han and Chewie, and then extra characters, you can have a ridiculous amount of named characters on the table now.
I liked that. So I worked the other day for a cheap 985 points. I think it was 11 activations. You can run all the Return of the Jedi heroes. That's Lando, Leia, Chewie, Han, Luke, all together. And it was just like, oh, this is my childhood. Thanks very much. I love it. And then, but
Yeah.
what's great is that that actually appeals to different Star Wars fans of different generations because you'll have
Mhm.
those who are a touch younger than myself, who will be well into the Clone Wars stuff and the newer films. There'll be those who older who will be
Mhm.
and myself into the original trilogy thing. So I think it fills ticks boxes all around for Star Wars fandom, if that makes sense.
It was the character question was definitely one that we worked very hard on when envisioning what the second edition would look like, what the 2.6 rules would look like, because it was probably the number one discussion point that we saw when we took over the stewardship of the games, which was players wanted more characters. They wanted the characters to come out more frequently. Um, this especially was hyper. I think it was hyper focused when we announced Shatterpoint. Because Shatterpoint is a character-driven skirmish game, so now all of a sudden, all these characters the players from Legion had wanted forever are coming out for this other game and not for their game, and why don't we have them yet? And we took that conversation really seriously, and we sat down and we had a lot of discussion about, well, we don't want to turn this into old school Hero Hammer where you're just running a bunch of solo characters in an army game because we really loved the army game established rules and play of Legion. That's what the game is meant to be. So how do we come up with innovative solutions? How do we come up with ways in which we can inject more characters, which are so important to the Star Wars mythology and the IP, for Legion players to use without necessarily changing what the game is? And that was the big challenge that led to a lot of these different solutions, whether it's character units or it's character attachments in units and those types of things, and points adjustments for characters as well.
this is kind of a more of a development question sort of thing, but how at liberty are you to create the rule set in terms, and then report back to Lucasfilms and say, we've got this idea. Are they how receptive are they to these ideas? Is probably the better way of asking that question. Are they very much like, no, you go with it and roll your board, or do you have to? If there's certain tick boxes they expect from what their IP characters, if that makes sense?
It's definitely a dialogue.
Yeah.
They are very open to and aware of the fact that game rules have to be interpreted in certain ways. Um, but they also are very focused, and rightly so, on the fact that, for LFL, unlike some other licensors, and I think this is what's very interesting with working with them, is that they are very focused on the idea, or they believe in the idea that the products that are on the market that bear the Star Wars title reflect the Star Wars story. And so there's a lot of impetus, or there's a lot of pressure in discussions to be like, but how do you, if a player came and said, I want to tell the canonical story of Star Wars through this game, through Legion, can I do it? And if the answer is you can, right, as a player, you can choose to play the canonical way or retell the story almost exactly. Um, that's most important. And then from there, it's like, yeah, but and then players are obviously going to make their own choices. But that so there it's a give and take. But obviously we've had a lot of really great opportunity to inject new ideas into Star Wars that fit within the property, right? The Guerrilla Troopers, which are upcoming. We talked about the Riot Troopers previously. Most of the customizable characters and the options that are available to them are in some way kind of new or spin or innovations on ideas that we've seen before. The spider legs for the little super tac droid are probably the most extreme. We've talked about those before. So they are very open to kind of that collaboration. But we obviously want to make sure to do our due diligence and ensure that anything that we bring to them is very much in line with what we believe Star Wars to be, to be good stewards of that galaxy and those characters and those stories and all of that through what we get to do. And as big fans of, the property and longtime people who have engaged with the fandom, it becomes a lot easier to do that because you usually have just an instinctive protective feeling about that. Like we don't typically have a lot of ideas, I think, internally where it's just like that would never fit within Star Wars. Because there's a reverence for it among the studio, just as people who have engaged with it for a long time. So you kind of have a natural barometer for the ideas that are too silly or too out there.
Well, I mean, I think I certainly feel like you've stuck to that well, especially to the point of especially with the next edition in Star Wars storytelling coming out May 22nd, and then you guys dropping the Mandalorians almost immediately afterwards is
Mhm.
perfect timing. I've spoken to a number of Legion players who are specifically returning to the game because you are releasing Mandalorians. So
I mean,
there are huge levels of excitement for these guys.
I've also had quite a lot of people outside of Legion, like they've kind of seen it on the peripheral and they've not really had any army. They're like, oh, I don't really care about this. Can't, oh, it'd be cool if how many Mandos I could run. And I'm like, well, you can run like 4, 5 units maybe at most. And now they're hearing that you can run a whole well, it's not a faction, is it?
Force. Should we say
Yeah,
force?
it's a battle force, right? They're not a faction. Um just like the Shadow Collective.
But I think we're gonna have to. It's not a battle force. It's not a faction. It's a clan.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
So
Plan's
yeah,
really
we,
good.
we,
Yeah,
we
you can
have
run a whole clan.
five new clans joining the game.
Yes.
And because they're interchangeable in varying different ways, because they're
Mhm.
mercenaries, I think that's the only way that we probably can refer to them. Because
Yeah.
you can't combine battle forces, you can't combine factions, but you can combine clans.
I'm just going to stick out there. I think there's more than 5 clans because because the bit that excited me the most. I mean, I really looked at the whole thing with the Mandos. I was like, yes. And then Mr. Shick, when you drop to the end and you can customize them yourself, I just went, boom. My brain just sort of went, yeah, exactly. Will's just said something. If you're listening on the audio, just his arms waved in the air, that sort of thing. I just went, yes. And whatever time it was in the morning as well, I was like, yes. And yeah, so I was very excited about that, and I look forward to seeing more in-depth rules and all this sorts of stuff about how to do that. And I think that is. I said this we had Justin Fleming on the show recently. That's something, and we said that was something we discussed, and that is something people can create your own things in the same way. The create your own commanders for droids and for everyone, all of them, to create your own commander and agent. It's the same sort of thing. It brings your own what I want to get out of Star Wars ness into the game.
I'm ready for your tartan Mandalorian paint scheme.
Aye, this is Clan McDougal of the Mandalorian clan. Aye, that'd be fun. No, yeah, no. So, mate, that'll take
Well,
some
The
intense planning.
Plandalorians need to rise again, okay?
Aye,
Mandalorians, yes.
the Iron Brew Dodgers, that sort of thing.
I'm trying to convince Louisa to get into Legion, and it gets closer and closer every time she gets involved with like running Chopper Base Open or when she came to Adepticon this year. And she keeps asking, "Oh, maybe I should play it a bit more just to get a bit more of an understanding of the game." And then I've managed to convince her I'm going to buy the Mandalorians anyway. And I was like, "Oh, you can paint them for me because I'm going to play Clan Ren anyway because our dog's named
Not,
after Sabine
not,
Wren."
it's got to be
And
Clan Kreese, man.
no,
Get
it's
out
Clan
of
Ren
here.
because our dog is named after Sabine Wren,
Children.
and then she's going to paint all the Mandalorians like Bernese Mountain Dogs. So
Perfect.
Wow.
I'm just keen. I'm just keen to pull together a list which matches up where we're at the end of the last Mando series.
hmm
I want
Yeah,
I want Children of the Watch. I want Clan Kreese.
hmm
But it won't have
I think
pets.
it's exciting to think about some of the things that can come out in the future for the Mandalorians as well. Like obviously the Mandalorian survivors that we see in the end of season 3 from the Mandalorian show. Those are rife for expansion and exploration. Whether that's a new battle force or clan within the overall aggregate, or it's just some expansions for Clan Kreese, like who knows? But there's a lot. I mean, there's just going to be a lot of new Mandalorian stuff that people are going to get to explore, and it's an exciting part of, I think, the galaxy in general. And I know Dev had a lot of fun really defining the idea of when I came in with the initial pitch, and I said, "And I want you to be able to create your own Mandalorian faction, basically." And they were like, "What?" And I was like, "You'll figure it out." And then I walked away.
I was going to say, what was the concept of that? Did you just go in, gents, lads, guys, everybody? What about this? Just drop it and just see what happens, and everyone just going, what? And then you just go, right, I'm off. I'll see you guys later. Tell me how you work it out, and you just go and sit and have your coffee.
It was a little less. I mean, we had a meeting and I said, and I was like, okay, we have this opportunity to really dive into Mandalorians. Obviously, they're very popular, but the movie is, they're going to do this series of movies, and other shows about it. And the community in general already was very Mandalorian. Like the number of times we saw, I wish I could build a full Mandalorian army. How do I do that? Right? That same question. We knew there was a lot of desire in it. And so effectively, the initial design doc or the pitch was, we're going to make a Mandalorian army. It's not going to be a faction necessarily, but it's going to allow players to live the dream and make their own Mandalorians. And we wanted to treat it similar to, the idea of being able to really explore Mandalorians within the galaxy, but then also have the hobby opportunity to create your own Mandalorian. So I was like, we need to be able to take the existing Mandalorians and create them into armies that match their clans. So that gives us like 4 already, 2 with the ones that existed and 2 that hadn't because we needed the coverts, as we learned were Children of the Watch later. And then we needed Clan Kreese, which hadn't made their appearance in the game. And then that all was like, okay, that's a lot, but that sounds great. And then at the end it was, and also players should just be able to make their own clan because why couldn't they? And it was an idea that we had pitched to LFL, and they were pretty open to it because we know that Mandalorians exist scattered all across the Star Wars galaxy. And that means that there's absolutely a lot of unknowns, right?
Yep.
We know that there's a lot of different clans. So the fact that players could kind of invent their own, still fit within that canonical experience of Star Wars, the Mandalorians are oddly defined, but not in ways that some things within the Star Wars galaxy are a little more narrow, right? We know what Ewoks are. We know where Ewoks exist. We know what their culture is for the most part. We know what their characters are. Mandalorians are a bit different because we haven't explored every facet or every aspect of where the Mandalorians thrive or hide or whatever.
No,
And so that was really fun. And then,
they're fun.
they took those ideas and started to run with it and created a very cool system where it's kind of one battle force to rule them all, but they're all very different. and then you can customize it and do all this stuff. It was very neat.
I
Nice.
think adding on that as well, obviously a huge addition to the game, one that we haven't seen before, obviously with the flyers. So Mandalorians
Mm-hmm.
with Fang fighters from the video that I saw looks phenomenal.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was a different crazy plan that wasn't necessarily attached to Mandalorians, but came alongside of it. Was the desire to see flying vehicles, starcraft, starfighters, in the game, and I'm excited to be able to reveal more about all of that process a little later in the year as we get closer to the
Oh,
release in
when you
2027. But
when you said that, I like a meerkat. I was like, more? I was like, oh, that's. I was excited. I
not
was like, for a
yet,
moment, I was
not
like, oh,
quite
something's
yet.
getting dropped. Oh no.
Not quite yet. I can tell you that there's a pretty cool video we just finished, which is a it's a solid behind the scenes, and it has interviews with like Dallas and Pagani, and I do a little talking myself, and it just goes through kind of the whole process, answers a lot of the questions. So I don't want to steal anything from that because Tony worked real hard on it, and it's super dope. But
That's
we'll be
absolutely
sharing that later in the year.
nice. Um,
Obviously,
well,
yeah, I think that I said from Adepticon wise, obviously touching on a few other battle forces, but that will then lead us into obviously our next set of questions, which is
well,
the update that you guys gave us this week. So from what I can see, I've seen the army box for Mud Troopers,
Hmm.
which those guys are looking fantastic from the pictures. Yeah, 224th Armored Division army box. Those guys look great. Hondo's Battle Force looks fantastic. As well as although it is a terrifying prospect, the potential that I'm going to start seeing three AATs on every table I play on.
That's okay, because the next table is going to have 4 Wooloo tanks.
True. But this is why maybe you're going to bring a couple more of those Rebel Commando saboteurs with their sweet new bombs,
Impact
right?
6.
well, it's
And a Jyn Urso for good measure on one of them if you really want to punish somebody for bringing that tank.
that's. I mean, but if anyone takes 3 AATs, that's what they deserve.
What
But
do you
it's all
mean?
fun. Well, if anyone takes 3 AATs, the question we'll have to go is, are they going to be able to negate the AI? So, I mean, Andy, you've played more droids and things at the moment, and things like that, and so you've been looking into because you are the UK General Rules Master. Obviously, with the AI changes, that's going to change a lot of things. The way list building maybe works for some separatist players. So, Andy, what we got?
Yeah, I'm actually glad that the change has happened. Like, and droid players are getting penalized for it. And as a droid player, I'm happy for it in a weird way because
You
I
sadist.
completely, yeah. No, I think like I completely agree with everything you said in the video from Tuesday night where you said it was just too easy to circumvent. And part of the old fun was, okay, let's build order control into my list, make sure that this unit has an order every turn because I want my tank to be able to aim and shoot. I want my droidicas or whatever. Like it was really important and kind of added value. So like I think it's amazing that it's now something you've got to contemplate as an opponent or as a player. Um, so yeah, no, I think it's a congratulations from me on the AI changes. I like the way they interact with the broken vehicles and the suppression on the troopers and stuff, like the way the AI still kicks in. It's really cool changes.
The double change on that though is also it means that things that are lesser seen, such as like Lock Dirt on an AAT, might mean that Lock Dirt might get to be seen now and again. I mean, the suppressive factor on him aside, the fact that helps take away the AAT. So you're not just going, well, I'll take the for the coordinate, done, 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 done. It makes the changes I find, and I've said this, I think, about the Adepticon ones and the things in there, it makes list building across the board different and includes, excuse me, and brings in more variations. So you're not just seeing this is a standard done. There are now
Hmm.
more ways to try and circumvent person X's plan with your plan Y, if that makes sense. But what was I mean, I suppose, what was the conversation leading up to the AI debate? What other things were there anything that you can sort of say that was considered or were mentioned that you might be able to say that to bring that rule change, if that makes sense?
Yeah, the original AI stuff was a little too restrictive in our eyes, right? That's why we made the change going into the new edition in 2.6, right? To negate a lot of that. It turns out a lot of that was basically all of that, is what it really ended up with. And finding the middle ground between the two situations was really where we wanted to go. We want AI to be relevant, right? We want it to be something that players have to think about, but we don't want it to dictate your entire list build. So instead of sort of just always having to order a unit to get AI, now it's okay, well, the units will function fine until something goes wrong, is basically the idea, right? And then when the droids panic, not in game term panic, but when the B1s start running around in circles screaming, that's when things go wrong and they revert to AI. And if you give them an order, they'll still go do it. But yeah, that was kind of the idea from it. And we tried all sorts of stuff. But I think where we ended up was by far the best spot. I mean, we tried things like you always AI, and we're like, well, that's just no fun. Nobody liked that. And then we tried things like, well, do we shrink the range from the commanders? Cool. Now the commanders have to walk around and kind of babysit units. That's not great either. We tried a bunch of different stuff. And yeah, it I think we ended up in but there was no like second one behind this one where I was like, that could have worked. I think we hit this one and we were like, that's it. That's
And
the
then
one.
you tied in with the AI. Andy, I don't know if you're going to say this, but like the classification of troopers.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean that was another question. I was going to say for the AI side of things, though, I think it's also quite nice that the characters that you can now add to units start to remove that, so therefore you don't have to
Mhm.
worry about it as much. If you
Yep.
really want your BXs to always have it, because you just put General Grievous in them or a Sarge, and same with I think the T series upgrade on B2s. I saw a lot of people
Mhm.
going, "Oh, I don't want to put that in there because then I can't overclock it." But now it's like, okay, but if you don't overclock it, it does mean you don't have to worry about AI. Like, so you've got now like a
Yep.
nice trade-off
It,
for
it
it.
it adds more of a purpose to those kind of upgrades, right?
Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. Yeah, and a
So
good decision making when it comes to list building. Do I want to be able to overclock you, or do I care more about order control and triggering AI? So yeah.
Yeah.
and I
So
mean,
And I think another.
especially on B2s, those are so durable, they get suppressed a lot.
Mhm.
yeah,
Like they don't go down. So
And yeah, and
yep.
like talking about the suppression aspect of it too, I think the other thing that was really important that came out of the discussions and the fix is that we also kind of came to the conclusion that having an entire faction that ignores a core principle of the game, which is the suppression system, was not great, right?
Yeah,
Um, Having a droid army that basically negates one of the faction identities we're slowly building into Empire, which is that they do a lot of suppression and they rely on suppressing units and panicking them and those types of things. It just didn't quite jive with the player expectations or experience. So it was also having this outsized impact on other factions as well and within the game. And so bringing that whole system to a place where I think CIS or separatist players are now playing the game more like everyone else did in
mhm.
terms of like I have to think about upgrades that are going to mitigate suppression. Um, and maybe I want to take these things that I wouldn't have before because now all of a sudden these tokens matter. And that's an experience that, three other factions have been dealing with forever, and it's a new experience for them. But I think it's a very healthy place for players to be existing in as well. You know, and was something that Pagani and the team really talked about quite a bit during the changes and how, how do you mitigate it? Oh, well, you mitigate it like everyone else does through some upgrades and other things like that.
was that part of the decision that then led to introducing the new heavy troopers? Then that you felt like the droidicas and the aquas were too impactful, and like bringing them back in line and being affected like a normal thing, was that like one of the decisions for this happening, or
I think that was a happy alternate to really what we were going for, right? What that, I mean, that is something that we wanted for a long time, right? We kind of wanted that for like Wookiees when we were doing that kind of stuff. We wanted it for Dark Troopers back in the day, but we finally decided that now was the time to do it. And going forward, you'll see this used more when we get larger stuff. Um, but the idea there was really the like walking line of sight blocking stuff was not really intentional. when we were designing those units and that kind of stuff, and it worked out to be fine, but it's very gamey and not very thematic. Um, so we didn't like that, basically.
Yeah.
So
You and
we
me
got
both. Everyone else as well.
yeah, like we got rid of that, and then we also, and I think it's fine for like large vehicles and stuff, and even an ATST to block line of sight. I think that's fine, right? That's not what we're talking about here. But those units were able to do it in a way that was not really what we wanted from those units, right? So we got that, and then we also got to add the suppression mechanics onto them, which I think works much better than the sort of damaged vehicle or the losing half your squad versions,
Mhm.
right? So I think it helped push us in that direction when we were looking at the AI stuff to be like, okay, now it's time for heavy troopers, right? So
Will it expand past like droids? Because obviously Dark Troopers are the first thing outside of the droid faction that spring to mind that could be also heavy troopers, or is it just something you'll keep an eye on?
it's something we'll keep an eye on. I don't think it'll go to Dark Troopers because I think if we did that, we would want them to be on a larger base or something to kind of show that bulkiness, right?
Mm.
So
No, that makes sense.
I don't think we want to tell people to rebase their Dark Troopers or anything right now.
Yeah.
So
No, I mean that's good to hear as
um
well, though.
yeah, like but I mean, not maybe someday in a new edition or something that something like that could happen, but I don't see it happening anytime soon. No.
No,
That
that
makes
makes
sense.
sense.
Well, and I
Also,
think the other thing too is that, um, like Pagani mentioned, you'll see this probably more in the future. There was this weird gap where you had creature troopers, you had troopers, creature troopers, and then like everything else was kind of a vehicle. And that doesn't give you the space you really need for some of the things in Star Wars. You know, there's a lot of things that don't fit on a 27 mil base very well, but do you want to put them on a vehicle base with a notch? And what does that mean? And do we have to do things to work around that? So I think it really made, it was kind of one of those 2020 hindsight moments where you're like, why was something so simple so hard to figure out until you got there? But like, why not make the creature trooper equivalent for a trooper, which became the heavy trooper? And this allows us to do things like have a 50 mil non-notch base, have a 50 mil notch base, those types of things. We, yeah, I mean, we even looked at the heavy trooper idea for does it make sense for like the speeder units and things like that, your Z-74s and that type of stuff. And ultimately we decided no, but I think it was one of those interesting avenues to explore based on the fact that does it just work better? Does it make more sense? Right. And what does that mean and how does that affect things? This kind of goes back to the idea that we looked at the wheel bikes having suddenly a purge value and being heavy troopers instead of vehicles. Does that accomplish things or not? Obviously, we decided not to do that because we didn't like it, but there were a lot of interesting avenues explored for sure that were offshoots of those types of things.
But I think with the wheel bikes, so I've played into them a couple of times. They're a great support unit, so they're not game breaking.
Mhm.
Having suppression on them would make them. I mean, I feel like you'd need to drop their points down quite considerably if you ended up taking actions off them. So where
Mhm.
where they're sat at the moment feels really good.
Yeah, and I think thematically too, we kind of ended on a spot where it made more sense for them to exist like they did. But
Mm.
a lot of the times when you're exploring that new space, you kind of apply it. You want to push to see where it breaks, right? And Pagani and the team are very, very good about doing the due diligence of that exploration and not saying no to something until they've tried it.
which makes sense.
Just on
Andy,
the
oh, go
oh,
on,
go on.
Andy.
I
Yeah,
was
no,
gonna
no, I was
say,
going to say, yeah.
since we've mentioned Droidicas and not everyone might have seen it, can you just obviously just confirm the misprint for us? Because some people might not have
Yes.
seen your post.
They are supposed to be speed one, not speed two. They cannot attack in wheel mode.
Oh, that's a shame.
Um, and the fixed front missing from their weapons is intentional.
Yeah, I thought it was just good to get it publicly out there as much as possible.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Go on,
Nice.
Coggles.
No, I was actually about to say, obviously, we've got more. Obviously, moving from the droids, we had the points upgrades. But I was going to touch before going into that. I think what you've done with the AI, just my take on it. What you've done with the AI and the change into that, and tweaks to heavy troopers, that sort of thing. For me, I thought it was like, that's a really good way of not having to change all the points on all the droids, particularly acro droids and stuff like that. That's a really good way of doing that. So I hope that was when I saw that, I was like, that's cool, that's clever, I like it. Obviously, you touched on that. You touched on what currently you keep something on your quote unquote watch list. What's on the watch list at the moment? If you are allowed to say what's on the watch list, faction wise, not unit wise, obviously.
Do you have anything faction wise on the watch list?
No, just tell the units. Go ahead. It's fine.
Oh, if you want
You
to,
can get
I
into
don't mind.
specifics. It's
You can
not a
go
big deal.
specific.
Yeah, well, I guess faction-wise, we're looking at the Kashyyyk battle force quite significantly, right? We
Mhm.
want to look at that. Holistically, we've started looking at that already.
Ooh.
And then we've got some of the bounty hunters are on the docket as well. So we're looking at like Bosk and Cad Bane and the IG units are kind of all on our what do these need to have happen to them to get them to an exciting point where people want to play them, right?
Yep.
Because I think some of them can probably be addressed through points for the bounty hunters, but I think others probably need some changes to command cards, changes to rules, that kind of stuff. So
That makes sense.
to really get there.
Well,
I think those are kind of our two big ones. We're of course still looking at separatist stuff because we made one big change. We want to kind of see how that goes a little bit before we start doing anything else.
Oh yeah.
We don't want to make anything we don't want to hit anything too hard. So we're big on smaller incremental changes rather than sweeping and kind of blowing things out is really where we're at. So that makes it take a little bit longer, takes it a lot longer. But I think that's worth it personally because something that I've never enjoyed is playing a faction or an army or something like that. And then it gets nerfed and then you're like, well, this is terrible now. So as someone who's played games for a very, very long time, that is always something that has left a bad taste in my mouth.
I've always
Yeah, I think that's kind of
Go on, Andy.
I was gonna say I've always thought and I've seen on forums and stuff that they're like massive wish lists that are like arm's length long of all the points changes, and they make their own obviously feedback and stuff like that. But then I've always appreciated exactly what you said. It's small individual strokes targeting very small precision things that you focused obviously your play testing on, I assume, to then that which I think then have bigger impacts because it forces everyone's like, oh, that's the new thing that's been changed. Let me put that in my list, or I want to put this on the table now. And then the meta kind of shifts naturally because of just these very, very small, what it's like 4 or 5 changes for every faction near enough. So yeah, no, I think it's quite good that you do the smaller broad strokes and having large ripples
No, I
from
mean,
that.
I'm inclined to agree with that. I'd go a bit philosophical. Like you can make a big splash in a pond with a giant boulder, but if you make tiny little things with the with little drops of rain when it rains, the ripples still have the same effect, a similar effect. So it's like lots of little changes and all that sort of stuff. So that's really cool. We do have some questions, unless Andy had anything else. We do have some questions from the public, who, well, they don't get to talk to you too much unless they go to the conventions. But we had some, and Andy, you've got a couple lined up already. If you want to fire away.
Yeah, the first one was the biggest one I thought was the logic behind the Guardian change that snuck in there. That when you Guardian an attack, you receive 1 suppression. So, what was the logic behind it, or the design?
Well, in theory, the only time you're ever guardianing an attack is when it's good for you.
Mhm.
And generally speaking, things should have costs of some sort, whether that's an opportunity cost, whether that's a suppression cost, something like that. So that's, I think, the very low level of that, right? But of course, Obi-Wan is kind of our biggest guardianer of all time. So he is affected the most by that. That was certainly taken into consideration, something that we thought about while we were doing all this stuff. But I mean, even other Guardian things, right? Like I think it's important that things have costs, and Guardian was something that is very strong when it's strong, and you only use it when it is that strong. So having that cost seemed reasonable. There was no particular, there was no particular like, wow, we watched this game and this happened, right? It was more of a conception. situation.
I think it's a thematic thing. Generally speaking,
Absolutely.
Guardian is always against a ranged attack.
Mhm.
So if you're throwing your lightsaber in front of somebody to guardian an attack or shield somebody from an attack, you then yourself are being shot.
It takes it out of you, doesn't it? I mean, it's just
Yeah,
they're
it's
worn
not
out.
it's not like you phase out and deflect the bullets when you're not in the universe. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think from that perspective, it fits the game much better.
I feel like at some point Kenobi in the Clone Wars series says, "I can't keep doing this all the time." Something I feel like that's probably a
So is
rationale
that what he sounds like? Is it?
somewhere like that. Definitely not like
Pretty
yeah.
Is this
No, I
old
was
man?
like
Is
spot
this
on.
old man
I thought
Western Kenobi?
I thought Ewan McGregor was here, like right now, just
Always like you
just in
will.
this moment.
I
I
think we're
know,
more
blown
Gregor than
away.
Ewan.
Always like you will. It's all good. So yeah, so there's the rationale on that one. Ollie, have you got anything picked up from the Q&As going on?
No, give me a
No,
minute.
okay. No, it's cool. Well, no, I've got one that was asked by the Reverend. He remembered, and he remembers things. This guy, he remembers things. And he said, you mentioned on the last the November update that there may be some changes regarding command cards. Have you any update on that? Is what he said.
Just command cards in general.
As he said, so you're looking at something like command cards and things like that, but that was what he said. So that's him
Oh,
asking that.
yes. Well, just kind of as we are going forward, designing command cards and things like that, our hope is that there are less sort of required or auto takes for characters and units in general. And this applies kind of as we're going through and redoing all the command cards for not all, as we're redoing command cards for characters or creating new characters with command cards. Our hope is that we have less that are must takes, right? Because we, for a few reasons. One, we want choices inside the command hand. We don't want to be like, I take Vader, jam 6 Vader command cards in there, right? That's not really what we want out of the command hand. And then that also says, hey, if I took Vader and jammed 6 Vader command cards, I can no longer really take another character because I can't take their command cards and they have to have XYZ to be a functional character. Right. So our hope is that when you're taking characters, you're taking 2 or 1 or maybe 3 at the maximum for some of these characters that have a bunch, right? But that leaves space for more characters in your lists, for different options inside your list, maybe some Battle Force specific ones, maybe some faction specific ones. So the hope is that by creating characters and stuff that are less sort of leaning on their command cards to gain their abilities and their power, that we can open up list building to allow for more different characters, more different build options, more that kind of stuff. We also talk about this a lot with order tokens and sort of what orders are going into your bag and things like that, and the cost associated with that as well, right? Like one of the things that we always talk about is operatives. The operative order token can be very disruptive to armies because it can be hard to order. If you draw it at the wrong time, it can be really, really bad. So how can we discount or make operatives more independent in a way to do that kind of stuff? When we have that command upgrade that will order an operative from a commander, right?
You
So like
take
that was
the
one.
trusted agent upgrade,
There you
maybe.
go.
Agent.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So trusted agent will let you sort of give that order out. So now you don't necessarily have to find that, but it does require for you to, one, to buy an upgrade, and then two, to have a commander that is hanging on near their operative and that kind of stuff. So the opportunity cost there of positioning and things like that and slots and that kind of stuff is sort of the cost of that, getting that operative token out of your bag so that you can then function your order control and that kind of stuff.
Cool,
So,
cool, cool.
Another thing that we've been looking at, or actually, I mean, implementing, right, which has appeared in both Imperial High Command and in the Jedi Council pack, is that there are semi-unique command cards now, right? Like where you have your Jedi Council only command cards that can only be used by Jedi Council members, but it doesn't matter if you're Plo Koon or Ki-Adi Mundi.
Yep.
You have your Imperial High Command cards, which don't care if you're Krennic or Thrawn or Tog or whoever, they just work. This also kind of works to give them a bit of both worlds where it's unique because only a select number of characters can take it. Also, if you're taking multiples of those characters, it kind of spreads the risk out that one of them gets removed from the table. You still have one more character who can play it, that kind of thing. So that's been another innovation, I guess, or kind of change in philosophy in terms of how these work. So when you look at the Jedi Council box from a legacy kind of viewpoint, you say, well, each character only gets one command card, but because there are two Jedi Council cards in there, you're kind of getting 3 per character. It's just 2 of them are shared across 4 different characters.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm really looking forward to the Jedi High Council. Like Ki-Adi-Mundi's a cool dude, cool pointy head dude. I do look forward to putting him on the
He's
table.
very
That's fun.
divisive. People either love Kiadi-Mundi or they really don't like him, is what I've learned, having
He,
worked on that character and been watching the community discourse around him.
his death scene his death scene on Kate and Nemoidia, I think is the planet, is how I've got my clones based up, why they're all snowy and stuff like that. That's my
Perfect.
that's my logic. So now it actually goes, oh, and I can do it at the same time.
I'm
So that's all
waiting
good.
on Ponkrell, and then I'll play clones.
Oh yeah, he'll be very cool.
Yeah.
I like Pongkrell a lot too. Just the visual design is pretty awesome.
Oh, yeah, the
Do we
model would look amazing. Yeah.
we can go on for plenty of like units and all this sort of stuff because I cracked open. Obviously, you did the update on Tuesday. I got home from work having been away, and I cracked out Jedi Survivor last night, and then obviously remembered that you can like slice up B1s, and I was just like, oh, this is gonna be fun. So it's just like I was like, if only in dreaming that sort of thing, but that was fun. So yeah, there's so many things you can crack out and go, I want that, I want that, I want that one. That like somebody somewhere is saying, can we have the Sandcrawler with Jawas? I imagine somewhere that would be entertaining.
Oh,
Uh,
there's a couple of people.
Right?
Jawas seem to be becoming the new Gungans, it feels like, to some small part of the community.
it would be just like someone running Yub Nub. They'll just be going Houdini as they push the little mini on the board, that sort of thing. Talking little minis, Ollie, you got next question?
Yeah, we had Andreas Killy say, with
Oh,
all
well,
of
attack
the
both well.
with all of the units coming into the game, in the character slots, and obviously we spoke earlier about teaming up Han and Chewie together. Has there been any consideration in potentially altering the Force organization chart to allow for additional characters to be taken?
Yes. Well, not necessarily for additional characters to be taken, but there has been talks about altering force organization charts. Um, we do that in battle forces already, right?
Mhm.
So, for example, Red Tree Village can take a pile of characters. So I think keeping this sort of standard one for core army building is good because it keeps everything nice and tidy and that kind of stuff, and we can have our normal restrictions and that kind of thing is great. I think exploring that inside of various battle forces is kind of how we plan to continue doing that.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
No, perfect.
I think,
Andreas, I hope that helps.
Anaka's gang is a great example of that because it's the
no
first,
commander?
yeah, the first org chart that doesn't have a commander, right? Not even listed. You can't. It just one just doesn't exist. So, um, and doing it that way to kind of talk about the core army building part, right? Like when you start messing with fundamental building blocks like that, you want to control other variables, and Battle Forces allow us to do that by knowing what the selection will be or being able to curate that selection as the game grows. Whereas those standard kind of army selection rules for your core, take anything you want from a faction. We have a good plan on what we're going to be making 3, 4 years down the line, but we don't actually know what those things will necessarily do or how they will impact the meta or what, being able to suddenly maybe being able to take 6 operatives in a rebel army right now is okay, but in 2 years we release a box of more characters and now all of a sudden they have interactions that are going to be significantly problematic, right? um,
Oh,
and
that
I
makes
and that kind of comes back to this is where battle forces are very exciting because we can do a lot of really wild stuff, but we have a lot more control over balancing those things, and being able to future proof them in a way.
Yeah, that makes
oh, no,
sense.
that's great.
Andy,
Um, Yeah, for the only thing I've seen negatively
oh,
is the fear of the sniper spam in
Hmm.
two aspects. Like high activation count, I think it can lead to, which is obvious, but more about the auto wounds. So I was wondering if you could kind of give some feedback to quell the naysayers about it already, that the auto wounds is not something to be feared, because you've play tested it, and obviously how that kind of you ended up at that decision, I guess, in a positive way, and you don't think it is a bad thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's two major things to think about when you're looking at this, and how this works, right? Is they, barring exceptions, they cannot move before they attack. So at the start of their activation, what they can see is what they can attack. So you can use that to determine what so if your opponent has a bunch of these snipers, you can use that to determine what and how many of those snipers can shoot at what every turn. And then number two is it is not a guaranteed one damage.
Mhm.
You are at, we just got the numbers in our last cast that we were doing, which is 58%. If you don't aim to roll at least one critical,
Yep.
and then is 76, I think was the second number. If
You got
Sounds
it.
about right.
76.
Yep.
to roll a critical. So even with an aim, and of course, if you have multiple aims, then it's getting much higher. But yes, but even with an aim, you're at 1 out of 4 times it doesn't work, right?
Yeah.
Which means that one of them, most shots in the game, it's going to work out. 2 of them, 4 of them, not going to happen, right? Like you're not going to hit them all. It's just statistically unlikely. So between that kind of idea, right, is you can hide your characters. That is what most people are worried about, right? Because I don't think too many people are particularly upset if they sniper shoot and take out an Ewok or something, right? Like whatever, nobody cares.
Tell that
But
to
they're
the
worried about
Ewoks.
their expensive characters, right? I mean, someone cares. Someone back at home is like, um, but most people seem to be much more worried about like Yoda and Vader and those kind
Oh,
of
I'm so
characters
worried
just taking
about
blows,
snipers.
right? So sure, the snipers can control where those characters move, but hopefully you can find ways to still impact the table while staying out of line of sight of all 4 of the snipers, for example. Or maybe you're only line of sight of one of them, or something like that, right? And then that one, once it shoots, it is very vulnerable, right? Once it loses that incognito, those units are not durable, right? They have 2 wounds. And if they're using the sniper thing, they're not hiding the second man in the unit. So you can defeat them in one volley, essentially. So I think it's fine. Like,
Yeah.
will that 100% be how it plays out? I don't know. We'll see, right? We always talk about how we can only play test so many games. But in our games, there was a lot of really great counterplay going on. There was a lot of interesting decisions of like, man, the snipers are overwatching this spot. I guess I better not walk in there. So it was a very good cat and mouse game getting played where everybody had all the information and now you just gotta see how you can get around it or that kind of thing, right? So I'm very excited to see where they go, but I don't think they're gonna turn into like, oh wow, I can no longer play Jedi because the snipers just blast them all immediately. Like I just don't think that's gonna be a reality that exists. And if it is, I will, I don't know, eat my hat or something. What do they say?
Pretty sure if it is, we'll probably just make some adjustments to bring it back in line. So
Also that too, but
no
like
hats need to be eaten here, right?
I will wager 1 hat.
I'm sure there's a streaming service that can help provide entertainment. for
One
such things.
hat.
I shall wager you 1 Star Wars Udi.
Perfect. Oh, that'd be
I'll
a
eat
lot
that,
to
I
eat.
guess. I don't know. That's a big meal. Oh, here we go.
We're definitely not
hat
eating
is
the
out.
championship hat. That's a collector's item right there.
Yeah.
That's important.
we can supply the baseball hat for.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah,
Got to
can't
get a
have that one.
Bassinet
Yeah,
Moon hat. Enjoy.
We'll sort those out.
We'll
Everybody has
allow
a
you to
hat,
smoke
but-
it beforehand, Pagani. You can give it a good smoking the night before
yeah.
to tenderize it up.
Yep,
Perfect.
be quite good. Stick a brisket.
Was it,
Carolina barbecue sauce only. A vinegar base is all you get with the hat.
Was it peanut butter you wanted on it as well, Will? Like
Oh,
from
always.
the-
Peanut butter is great.
yeah.
I'll put peanut butter
From-
on anything.
From that stream you did with Dallas.
Oh, what? That was so much fun to watch.
That was a good time.
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah, that was good. 2 more questions, and then we shall wrap up. So the first one is from Seb, who says, "It often appears." I'll quote him verbatim here. He said, "Often appears that some of the new units or keywords are aimed at making things hit harder and faster. For example, the new keyword assault encourages units to get close and then to destroy things when it gets there. When balancing units, do you focus more on attacking strength or the ability to score the objectives, both of which are obviously important for winning games?" And that's from Seb.
I mean, which one do we focus on more? I will say the math is much easier on the attack output.
There is a lot of that, yep.
Yeah, so that one is much easier to assess and that kind of thing. Whereas scoring objectives is much more about like table layout and speed and durability, which is much harder to assess.
I like that it's got you going, that's
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the complicated part is which one's more, I guess.
That's,
Probably
yeah.
the attack, if I had to guess, is mostly where points come in because that one is pretty easy to mathematically say it does this much damage, right? So that one is pretty easy, and the other one is a much more a feels, not a reals.
That makes sense.
So
And I guess then, well, that's the majority of the questions that we've got from the sort of the fans. There is one question that's always on the mind and always asked, and it's a tradition, and it will always be a tradition until it's not. Gungans? Question mark.
you gotta get him.
I have to continue the meme. Just can't stop it.
I'm not entirely sure what the proper response is. It sounds rhetorical. So Gungans.
Gungans question mark is just all it is really, because it was touched on in November.
When we last had you on, yeah.
Yeah, it touched on November.
You promised us at
you
Adepticon.
promised us. It promised things.
I'm
You
pretty
said
sure what
we
I
could stop
promised back in
asking.
November was I said after the Adepticon presentation, I guarantee you won't ask me about Gungans. And you know what? Nobody did. So who wins?
Oh, I see what you're
This
saying.
guy.
This
See what you did there.
Can tell he's a
Because
parent.
everybody only wanted to talk about Mandalorians. So
Mission
you know
accomplished,
what?
man. Mission accomplished.
I see what
No
he's done.
hats being eaten here. I'll tell you.
Can tell he's a parent. He's had that conversation. Well, I think you find what I actually said was, and that's definitely spoken.
Oh, I
Play it back on your
specifically
phone.
remember it because I got a lot of blowback from people at the office being like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "If you listen to what I said, it was very specifically. No one's going to ask because they're going to be too excited about other things."
Clearly forgot about some crazy British people. But no, I mean, I think that's all the time we've got for, and it's for the time we can sort of slot in. Unless there's anything you want to sort of, I don't know, new units you want to reveal accidentally on purpose. I don't know.
New units accidentally on purpose.
You know, no, I just there's me basically fishing for a tease for a reveal. But it's not going to happen. I don't think.
I don't think there's anything that is like even close to the cusp at this point. Because we got to keep our secrets for next Adepticon, you know.
You got to. I mean, no, you could share something.
Mini Strav as
I was
well.
going to say mini Strav. You got
That's true.
UKGE. You could just like, here's something for the British, like paint like an ATST.
I think if all the stars align, UKGE will have a pretty fun surprise actually.
Maybe take
for
my glasses
you
off.
all.
So
Brits.
I do have
fingers crossed. It's all based on some logistics timelines and everything else, but the UK team from Asmodee is working really hard to make it happen, and we're doing our part to make sure that it happens. So there might be a fun surprise at the booth for everyone that'll get announced hopefully close to the show, so you'll know if it's coming.
To paraphrase Leonardo DiCaprio, you have my attention.
Yeah.
So there we go. That's cool. Well, gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us. I'll allow you to complete the rest of your day because you've still got effectively half the day to carry on with.
Got a little bit of time.
Is there anything you want to shout out in terms of people you'd like to say thank you and all this sort of stuff or anything like that at all before we sign off?
No, thank you so much for you all for running the show, for doing everything you do for the community, keeping the excitement and the discussions going. It's super great to be able to listen to your thoughts and all of that other good stuff, to be able to watch as you are great stewards and outreachers to the players in your area and even beyond across the pond. So I'm really humbled and thankful that you love the game enough to bring us on and chat with us. Let us take the show for a little bit and continue to do what you do.
No, well, thank you very much.
Thanks for coming on, guys.
Thanks, Mr. Pagani, Mr. Shick, the Wills. That's us signing off. Thank you. You've been listening to That's No Moon, a Star Wars Legion podcast. Goodbye. You've been listening to That's No Moon, a Star Wars Legion podcast. To keep up to date with us, please like and follow us on Facebook, That's No Moon, a Star Wars Legion podcast, and Instagram, That's No Moon podcast.